Alright, so getting started right into this recipe, we are going to start by adding some flour and coconut sugar into our food processor and then blitzing this up a bit. This is going to be the shortbread crust and topping of our 7-layer bars. Then I'm adding a little pinch of salt just for flavor and blending that up. And then while I'm pulsing it, I'm going to be adding little kind of like teaspoons of butter or cubes of butter into my dough. And this is going to help make it get that like sandy texture that you want when you're making a kind of shortbread or pastry dough. Alright, and once that's all come together, it should just kind of be sticking together. And we are going to pour most of this mixture into the base of our pan, reserving about 3/4 of a cup to put on the top for our very last layer at the very end. So I started out using a spoon here to push it in. Honestly, just get in there with your hands, it's a lot faster. Alright, so once the crust is nice and packed in the bottom, this is what it's going to look like, and we're just going to go ahead and bake that off. And next, while that's baking, we are going to make our coconut caramel. So super easy, just the cream from a can of coconut along with some coconut sugar. Melt this down, bring it up to a boil for about 5 minutes until kind of it coats the back of the spoon and gets nice and thick. When you run your finger down this, again, be careful because it's like super hot. It should kind of leave like a nice little stripe. So that's when you know it's kind of gotten hot enough and been hot enough for long enough. And at that point, we can take it off. And this caramel is awesome. It's so easy and it just gets like so thick and awesome and delicious. Yeah, it's just super great. So even if you don't make this recipe, highly recommend doing this like 2-ingredient caramel. And this is about the texture it'll look like once it's cooled down. So again, it gets much thicker. Alright, and then at this point your crust should be nice and baked, and we're just going to set that aside to let it cool. And meanwhile, we are going to get our toppings all ready. So we have the caramel sauce, the shredded coconut, some almond butter. You could use any nut butter that you have on hand or like, some chopped walnuts. Again, you can kind of use whatever nut you have on hand or that you like. Some sweetened condensed coconut milk, which is really kind of the distinguishing flavor in this. Some semi-sweet chocolate chips, and then finally that extra little bit of shortbread that we made. So starting with the caramel, this is going to be the first part of our base. And you're going to want to spread the caramel out, being careful kind of not to disrupt the crust too much because the crust is going to be like flaky and buttery, so just be careful when you're spreading it out. And then next we're going to top it off with our chopped walnuts. Then we are going to drizzle over top our almond butter or your nut butter of choice. And I just kind of like very haphazardly did this, so you don't by any means have to do it in like a perfect layer. And then we are going to add our shredded coconut. You can also use thick coconut if you want. It just kind of depends on the texture you're going for. And then we are going to go ahead and drizzle on our sweetened condensed coconut milk. I went ahead and melted mine because it was a little bit more solid. And then I'm going to sprinkle on the chocolate chips. Alright, and then finally we are going to sprinkle over the rest of the shortbread mixture that we reserved earlier along in the video. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of like press this down with my hand. You don't want to press it too hard or it's going to smush all your layers. But when I cut the bars, I want them to be compact and I want the top like crumbly part not to be a crumble and fall everywhere. I want them to stay like together more, so that's why I'm pressing them down. Alright, and now we're going to pop that in the oven, and when it comes out, it'll be all golden brown and delicious. So I love this recipe because honestly it can really be thrown together with a couple staple pantry items and then really like altered to whatever your taste or your preferences are. So I would recommend letting these cool for at least like 15 minutes before slicing. Otherwise, they're probably not going to come out in as nice slices as I have here. But honestly, they're super good when they're warm as well, so I understand if you can't wait. And yeah, these bars will store pretty nicely for probably like 5, 6, 7 days. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe and let me know if you make it.